Hey, has anyone compared the Netflix released movies, Gunjan Saxena and The Trial of Chicago 7? Of course, they're not similar in terms of the content, but both of them were adapted from historical events. So, my question is, if a movie is based on true events, should we responsibly retell those truths accurately? Also, do you remember the three narrative strands with three different time frames in the movie Dunkirk? I'll be talking about three such narrative strands of the trial of Chicago 7 coming up. The episode category is Master Writer, and I was planning to talk about Aaron Sorkin. But after watching his latest The Trial of Chicago 7, an adaptation of true events which shook America in the late 1960s, this was directed by him too. Aaron has special affinity towards adapting, right? It got me into thinking about the various dimensions of movie adaptations. I would like to talk why Sorkinian true story adaptations are worthier. But before that, let's take a detour and take a look at a couple of Indian movies which are based on true events. Adapted screenplays based on true events are supposed to be blueprints to visually narrate the essence of something which adopted from a real incident or incidents. So it doesn't have to be exact documentation of what happened, but what if the output has deviated a lot from the essence of the source from which it is supposed to be adapted? Gunjan Saxena, the Kargil girl, was marketed as a movie based on the life of the first Indian Air Force woman pilot to fly in a combat zone. After the release of the movie, retired Flight Lieutenant Srividya Rajan, who is actually the first woman pilot to fly in a combat zone, posted her take on Facebook and strongly criticized the makers of the movie. Let me cite a few excerpts and you will understand the gist. Our flying began within a few days of our arrival and was never interrupted or cancelled for petty reasons, as wrongly portrayed in the movie. The squadron commander was a thorough professional. He was a very strict and tough officer who took us to task whenever there was a mistake from our side, be it male or female. We never faced any humiliating physical strength demonstration as shown in the movie. We were never ill treated or humiliated by our fellow officers. In the movie, Gunjan Saxena was shown as the only lady pilot to fly in Kargil operations. This is factually incorrect. We were posted together to Udhampur, and when the Kargil conflict started, I was the first woman pilot to be sent along with the male counterparts in the first detachment of our unit, which deployed at Srinagar. I flew missions in the conflict area even before Gunjan's arrival at Srinagar. We actively participated in all operations given to us, which included casualty, evacuation, supply drop, communication, sorties, SAR, etc. The heroic acts of the protagonist portrayed in the climax never actually happened and may have been shown as part of cinematic license. Next, being her coursemate and a good friend, I believe that the filmmakers have twisted the facts given by Gunjan for the sake of publicity. She's a brilliant officer and a thorough professional. She had many achievements during her career, which should have been portrayed to inspire the younger generation, instead of showing her as a weak and oppressed victim in certain scenes. As a pioneers of women pilots, we were treated with utmost respect, and it was our responsibility to live up to the expectations and pave way for future generations. The movie is sending a wrong message about the lady officers of IAF, thereby demeaning the prestigious organization of our country. Now, the most important part. Though I was the first lady pilot to fly in Kargil, I never claimed it in any forum. Before this, due to my strong belief in gender equality. In Kargil operations, male pilots had flown extensively and faced more hardships than us, but they never got or sought any publicity. We probably were given this fame because of our gender, and which I do not support. In defense services, there is no disparity between male or female. We are all officers in uniform. She deserves a strong salute for these words. Also, retired Wing Commander Namrata, she criticized the makers severely. She has written in an article that elaborate and fantasize if you must, but don't peddle lies. I personally felt that in order to emphasize that gender inequality once prevailed, makers went overboard and tarnished the image of many good officers. It sure is sending wrong message to the people who want to join Indian Air Force. And regarding the tarnishing of image, let me quote Namrata once again. The flight commanders, the people who wield the burden in all operational squadrons or units, disseminate flying tasks, schedule sorties and crew rosters, etc., are men of great professional competence, not in the least like that man depicted in the film. Every pilot in the Air Force has to prove himself, man or woman. Later, Gunjan herself wrote an article and refuted all these, but yeah, read and think about it. I'll add both these links in the description below. Now, let's take another example from Bollywood. Dangal. Dangal is said to be the biopic of Mahavir Singh Phogat. Okay, now if you go through Akhada, the authorized biography of Mahavir Singh Phogat, you will learn that Dangal is just a sports drama, but not exactly the biopic of Mahavir Singh Phogat. Of course, the wrestling matches didn't happen this way, but that's fine and understandable, right? This is a mainstream feature film, not a Doordarshan documentary. But in the movie, Coach P.R. Kadam locks Mahavir Singh's character when his daughter was battling for the gold medal. P.S. Sondhi, who was the real National Sports Academy coach, back then didn't lock real Mahavir Singh Phogat during the Commonwealth finals. But to keep the audience on the edge of their seats, the makers exploited the liberty and fictionalized it so. P.S. Sondhi, who is leading a private wrestling academy even after retirement, must have suffered hell lot of criticisms after the release of the movie. He finally had to break the silence to silence the bad rumors. Amir Khan himself spoke that the movie was fictitious to end the controversy. So I repeat my question: what if the output, the adapted screenplay and the movie, is not the essence of the true events from which it is said to be adapted? What if it defames someone? Those movies twisted truths and still claim that they are based on true events. But then some of you might ask that even renowned filmmakers like Tarantino had done this, right? He portrayed that Hitler was burned to death in Jewish Revenge in Inglorious Bastards. It show is far from the truth, but let me ask you something. Did it by any chance tarnish anybody's career or life? Was it marketed that the movie is true story? No. By the way, the same filmmaker went a bit overboard when he did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So yeah, I'm not gonna justify that one. It deserves a separate episode. So for now, let's go back to where we began. How is Sorkin's Chicago 7 better adaptation, though it has also bended certain truths? In the movie, even the character FBI agent Daphne O'Connor, who infiltrates the protests as Jerry Rubin's ally, is pure imagination. Some other Chicago cops did manage to infiltrate, but not as love interest of Jerry, or didn't break his heart during trial. But Sorkin had to depict that most of the officers of law and order, though they stood by the system and oppressors, they were gradually empathizing for the protesters deep inside. None of them were admitting it openly, but some were feeling that guilt inside. He needed a motivation for Jerry. Even Richard Schulz's character, the federal prosecutor, he was not an empathizer of the protests, or he didn't get to show, he didn't get up to show respect to soldiers who died in Vietnam. Actually, Tom Heron didn't read 4,752 names at the end of the trial as his closing statement either. Instead, 4 months before that, David Dellinger started reading those names, and when Judge arrived, he made Dellinger stop that move. But cleverly, very, very cleverly, Aaron Sorkin picked it up and used it at the end as a closing statement. Such a goosebumps moment, right? It'll make most of us raise and hold our hand up in the air. That is the utilization of creative liberty instead of exploiting it. What a perfect conclusion. What if Sorkin decided to showcase the actual truth and made Dellinger read out the names somewhere in the middle of the movie? Yes, it would have been a powerful scene, but it would have ended up as an iteration, overstressing something which the makers have been narrating all along. And it is also not just about placing that event at the end. If Dellinger read it at the end, will it be better than this one? No way. The Dellinger we have been witnessing on screen is someone who is expected to find means to do such a peaceful stunt to stress his point. But what about the movie character of Tom Hayden? From the very beginning, he has been the odd one out, who has immense tendency to be a law-abiding citizen. There are situations which even concrete this disparity within the Chicago 7. The two poles in the Chicago 7 are Tom Hayden and Abby Hoffman. Abby Hoffman, he didn't give a damn about the system, and he even came wearing a judge's robe to mock the judge, which actually happened. Okay, so in the movie, since there's a cold war between the ideologies of Tom Hayden and Hoffman from the very beginning, nobody would expect much that Tom would come out of the ego battle and act like Hoffman for a change. That gave us the cinematic epiphany. Aaron Sorkin started researching for the screenplay in the early 2000s, aiming to release it before the election back then. Why was this trial adapted for the screen now? The uncanny parallels with the protests which happened all over US recently is obviously one reason, but this is here to stay. The content is timeless. This is not a movie made entirely to utilize the momentum of the current political scenario. Many would claim that the whole movie was made to showcase how Judge ordered federal marshals to beat and gag the eighth defendant, Bobby Seale, who was the national chairman of the Black Panther Party. But to be honest, Sorkin didn't write any untruth to match with the current scenario. During the trial, it is said that Bobby was gagged for a few days, not just once as shown in the movie. But with that one scene, the silent reaction of gag Bobby is way more powerful, right? Their slogan, the whole world's watching. It's wow, it's perfectly deployed every single time. Now that I think about it more, actually, the whole world's watching is a better title than Trial of Chicago 7, right? Anyway, remember the three narrative strands with three different time frames in the movie Dunkirk. If you reverse engineer the Trial of Chicago 7, you will find three such narrative strands which are braided together strongly and beautifully. 1. The riots. How did the peaceful protests evolve into violent riots? 2. The courtroom drama. How unlawfully were the defendants and their lawyers treated during the trial? 3. The ideological and emotional tension. The Cold War between the father left and the further left. Tom Hayden and Abby Hoffman, who can't stand each other. They both believe that the other one is hurting the cause, but ultimately, at the end, they both realize their mistakes and they come to respect each other. He once said that, Aaron, anytime you get two people in a room who disagree about anything, any time of the day, there is a scene to be written. That's what I look for. So this third strand must be more personal and has to be his favorite. But not just one. Each of these three narrative strands were making us get empathized with the movie more and more on many levels. Watch Aaron Sorkin's masterclass if you're rich enough. Obviously, you know where to find it if you're not so rich enough but desperate enough. And start watching movies written by him, starting from A Few Good Men, 1992, which is again a courtroom drama. Also, watch The West Wing and Newsroom if you have more affinity towards TV series branch. To conclude, what we mentioned about the adapting true stories. Well, when you're writing a screenplay or directing a movie and claiming that it is based on true events, then uh, you're actually making them a promise that the essence of what you are about to see really happened. But the word based gives you a freedom that you have made certain changes at certain pivotal points to entertain them more without deviating from the essence. The essence, the bonds of the story is true, but makers have reshaped the meat on the bonds according to their conscience to add more drama and entertain the audience more. This reshaping shouldn't go too overboard, which would make it look deformed. Let me quote retired Wing Commander Namrata again. Elaborate and fantasize if you must, but don't peddle lies. So I'm going to wind up this episode. Thanks again for all your direct messages. Take care. Peace.